In this video, we're going to go over 3 different examples for how you can utilize the blueprint of moving through every word in a file. We're going to go through an easy example, a medium example, and a harder example, just so you can see the versatility in this blueprint and how you can utilize all of your skills in order to do some pretty powerful and cool things with text files. So in this example, I want to write a function called numWords that takes in a file name and outputs the number of words in that file. And I'm just making the guarantee that all words will always be separated by spaces. Anything that's really separated by spaces, I want to include that as a word. So for example, if we were looking at this text file of the lyrics of Bang Bang, right? In this case here, this is a word, and so I want that to be counted. This is also a word. I want that to be counted. And for simplicity's sake, this ampersand here, we'll also count that as a word. And this hyphen here, we'll also count that as a word. And we'll talk about what we could do in order to not count those. But for now, let's just consider them. And so let's create a function. So function, in this case here, we're going to output the number of words. So we'll call it count. We'll call this numWords, and this is going to take in a file name. All right. So now I need to move through every single word in this file, right? And so we know the blueprint for moving through every single word is based off of moving through every single line. And so therefore, we can go ahead and just create that blueprint here and then figure out how we'll change stuff in order to actually solve this exact problem. So first off, I need to move through every line, okay? And so first I need to open the file. So let's open file. So this will be fh is fopen of file name. Then we'll read all lines. And so in this case here, we have to get the first line. So line is equal to, And so in this case here, we need to ask ourselves, are we using fgetL or fgetS? And so if we're trying to count the number of words, the question there is, does it matter if the last word has a \n on it or not? And I would say it doesn't, because you're just getting out that entire word. It doesn't matter about the length of that word. You're just getting out that entire word. And there won't necessarily be the case where you will have something where the \n on the last word will really affect what you're trying to do here. And so in this case here, it doesn't matter, but we're going to use fgetL in order to do this. So let's do fgetL of file handle. Then we're going to say while, or actually, before that, fgetL here, I actually don't think we could use fgetS, because let's say we have a blank line, like this one here. If we have a blank line here, and we had fgetS, this has a new line character inside of it. And then when we're stir toking through it, we won't get something that's empty. We'll get a new line character, and we don't want to count that new line character as a word. Yeah, and so because of that, actually, we have to use fgetL. All right, cool. So while is char of line, so let's say need to use fgetL to account for blank lines. Yeah. So now we have while is char of line. Okay, now we have to move through all the lines in here. So we have line is equal to fgetL of file handle. Cool. Let's go ahead and close files. So fclose fh. All right, so this is the blueprint for moving through every single line in a file, right? And so now we need to move through every single word as well. So now we need to move through all words. And so we talked about the blueprint with that. So first you want to get out your first word. Rest is stir toke, I can't spell, stir toke of our line. Cool. Now while not is empty word. Okay, let's condense this some. So now we're inside of this loop, and now we can do stuff to our words. And so we want to count a word, right? So increment counter based on word, right? And then we want to get out the next word. And so in this case here, let's just go ahead and get out our next word right now. So word rest is stir toke, but now we're going to stir toke our rest. Awesome. So then now we need to increment this counter. So we need to create some sort of counter. Let's say count is equal to count plus 1. But where will I initialize this counter to be? Do I initialize it outside of this inner loop, but inside of this big loop? Do I initialize it outside of the big loop? And so in order to make this decision, right, if I were to initialize count is equal to 0 inside of this big loop, this means every single time I go through a new line, my counter will restart at 0. And in this case here, if I want to know the number of words in my entire file, I don't want my count to restart every single line for every single line. Okay, there could be the problem where, like, let's say I wanted to create a vector of all of the word or like all the counts of the words per line. Okay, then maybe I would want to reinitialize my counter here. But in this case here, I want an overall counter for my entire file. So I only want this to be initialized once at the very beginning, and then every single time increment our counter when we get a new word. Okay, and so we're initializing it out here. We are starting it. We're incrementing it here, getting on to the next line. And so this loop is going to keep running until we have no more words in that line. Then it's going to move on to the next line. And yeah, okay. So I think this is right. So let's save this. Numwords, cool. And let's try to run this. So count is numwords. Which one did I want to do? Let's do song.txt. Okay, and it says there's 607 words inside of here. Okay, and I think that's right. If we wanted to test this to kind of see, we can use the debugger in order to run through this code. So let's go ahead and do that actually. Let's start here. Let's start a breakpoint there. And let us rerun this. Okay, so now we are, let me move this over some. Cooperate. Okay, thank you. And so first, we're stepping through this and we're getting our file handle. That number means nothing. We're getting at our line. Our line is bang bang. In this case here, our count is 0. So while is char of line, okay, line is a char. So we're gonna go through this and we're gonna get out our first word. Our word is bang, okay? And word is not empty. So therefore we go inside of here, we increment our counter, cool. Then we get out our next word. Our next word is also bang, okay? So then we go to the top, right? It wasn't empty. So therefore we increment our counter. Our count is now 2. We get our next word. Our word is empty. So therefore we're done with this inner loop. Okay. So in that case there, it counted the number of words in that first one, and we move on to the next line. Okay. And then we get the next thing, and so on and so forth. This continues on until we get our final answer. And so that's it. So using the basic blueprint, we were moving through every single word in our file and counting how many words we had. So in this example, I want to write a function called capEveryOther that capitalizes every other word per line in a file. And I always want to capitalize the first word in each line. And I want to create a new file that's called capEveryWord.txt with these changes. And so in order to do this, I need to move through every single word in my file. Okay, and so in order to do that, we need to use the blueprint of first moving through every line and then adding to it the blueprint of moving through every word. And so let's go ahead and do that. So first off, let's write our function header. And so since this is a function that is just creating a new file, there's no actual output. And so in that case there, we're not going to have an output. We're just going to call this capEveryOther, and this will be a file name. All right. And then now we want to go through all the steps that we have done before. So we want to open the file. We want to read all lines, and then we want to close file. So let's go ahead and open this file. So we'll say fh is equal to fopen of file name. Okay. Now let's go ahead and close it as well. So fclose is fh. Awesome. And then now, what do I want to do? Now I want to read all of the lines. And so we can say my first line here. And then now I need to ask myself, do I want to use fgetl or fgetS? Okay. And so since I'm looking at individual words, okay, I know my last word will have a \n on it if I'm using fgetS. And then I need to ask myself, does that matter? And so I know I'm going to be stir toking through every single word inside of this line. And so there's this actual, this interesting thing about stir toke, that even if you're not stir toking, with the new line character, when you run stir toke, even if you use fgetS, when you get to that last word, it's going to take off the \n. Okay, so regardless on if we use fgetS or fgetL, when we're stir toking through our lines, we're going to get back words that don't have \n on them. And so because of that, let's just go ahead and use fgetL. And we'll have to account for this later on when we're printing to this new file, because we know that we no longer have the \n. So we'll open that, or we'll read in that first line, and we'll say while not is char, not is char, while is char of line, then we will get out our next word, our next line. So line is equal to fgetL of file handle. Cool. So this is the blueprint for moving through all of the lines. Okay. And then now we also have to move through every single word. So let's go ahead and do that. So move through all words. And so therefore we can first get out our first word. So word rest is equal to the stir toke of my line. In this case here, now I will say while not is empty of word. Then I want to do stuff for my words, and I will get out my next word. Stir toke of rest. Awesome. So now we have the blueprint set up, and now I need to actually do what the problem wants me to do. So I want to first ask myself, like, how do I know if I want to capitalize something or not? I always want to start on the first one, the first word of every line, and I want to capitalize it. Then not capitalize the next one, then capitalize the next one. And so if I number the words starting at 1 per line, I want to capitalize the first word, the third word, the fifth word, the seventh word, right? So on and so forth. And so I'm capitalizing all the odd words. And so I can create some sort of word counter that will reset every single time I get out a new line. And then based off of if my word counter is odd or even, I'll know to capitalize things or not. And so we can do that. And before that though, if I could have it where like I capitalize the odd ones, I lowercase the even ones, but what if I just lowercase my entire string, my entire line at the very beginning? Then that means I only need to ask myself the question of, do I capitalize this or not? Okay? Because if I don't capitalize it, it'll already be lowercased. So I can first lowercase everything. So lowercase whole line. So I can just say my line is equal to the lower of my line. Cool. And so now when I get out a word, I need to ask myself, do I want to capitalize this or not? So if the mod, not mode, if the mod of my word count n2 is equal to 1. If this is odd, if it's an odd word, then I want to capitalize it. So I will say my word is equal to the upper of my word. Cool. But before this, I have to initialize this count. And so I need to ask myself, 1, where do I initialize this? And 2, what do I initialize it to? So since I want this counter to reinitialize every single time I get out a new line, okay, I don't want that to happen outside of the big loop. If I do that outside of the big loop, that means it's only going to initialize at the very beginning, okay? And that's not going to be what I want. So I want this word counter to reinitialize every single time I get out a new line. And then I can also say, as soon as I get out my first word, I can just start my count off at 1. So I can go ahead and say my count is equal to 1 here. This is initializing my counter to be 1 every time I get out a new line. So now I'm asking myself, is it an odd word? If it's an odd word, then uppercase it. If not, don't do anything. Then move on to the next word, okay? But I need to be saving all of these words. There's many ways of doing this problem, but the way that we're going to approach it here is I can start building a string that then, after I'm done with one line, I will print that entire string to the new file. So I'll build a string iteratively, right? Get out each word, build, 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 build. And once I'm done with that line, then I'll print it. Move on to the next one. Then build, 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 and then print. Okay? And so in this case here, I need to be building a string. And so I'm going to call it print line. Let's say print line is going to be print line. And in this case here, I want my word, but I have to remember to separate them with spaces. And so since I have this extra space at the end here, right? It's putting a space after every word. That means I'll have an extra space at the end of my line. And so I can account for that later on. And then beforehand, though, I have to initialize this print line. So every time I get out a new line, I want to start my print line over again at an empty string. So print line is empty. And so in this case here, I'm starting out as empty. Every time I go through this, I'm building, okay? Then once I'm done with this inner loop here, I now have a new line that I want to print to my new file, okay? But remember, we have that extra space at the end, okay? And so therefore, before I print to that new file, I need to delete that last space. So I can go ahead and say print line at the end, delete it. So this is remove extra space. All right, and so before I get out the new line, now I want to print this line to my file. So I can use fprint, what did I call? Oh, I didn't even open my file yet, but let's go ahead and do that. So I need to first open my file with writing permissions that I want to create. So we're going to say fhw is fopen. And so in this case here, our file name is always going to be cap everyother.txt. Cool, I've opened that with write permissions. And so now I want to go back down here and then say fprintf, fhw. And what I want to put in there is my %s. Okay, and then I want to put in my print line. That's the new line that I want to print there. Okay, and so then I'm done with this, right? And it's like, oh, sure, I think that this is magically correct code, right? Let's go ahead and test this. So if I were to run, what is this called? Cap every other word, okay, with this song, okay. Oh gosh, what happened? Invalid file identifier. Song.txt exists. Oh my gosh. So the reason why this happens, this is an interesting error, is because, and it's erroring on the fprintf line, right? It says line 33. And it's saying that it's erroring because this is an invalid file identifier. But I'm like, oh, I opened this, so this is correct, right? But I opened it with reading permissions, not with writing permissions. So I can't use fprintf on something that I've opened with reading permissions. And so let's try that again. Oh man, there's another issue here, okay? In this case here, we're trying to delete, where is that? We're trying to delete that last part of my word, right? And it's like, sure, that makes sense, but what happens, so if we go to our text here, what happens on something like line 3, right? Where line 3, when I read this in with fgetl, this will be empty. This will have nothing inside of it, okay? And then in that case there, I'm trying to index at the end and delete it. And that's a problem. So therefore, instead of deleting the last line, let's just go ahead and just index what we do want. So in this case here, let's say print line is equal to print line from 1 to the end minus 1. Okay? This will allow us to not delete a spot that doesn't exist. Okay? And the reason why is because when we were deleting it before, end, once again, corresponds to the length of my line. My line in that case there is 0. So I would have been indexing at the 0th positions to delete it. In this case here, right, if my end is 0, if my length of my line is 0, 0 minus 1 is -1. This is trying to go from 1 to -1, and it can't do that, right? So in this case here, right here on the colon operator, it produces back an empty vector, okay? And with that empty vector, it's not going to index anything, so therefore you just get back nothing, and then we're good. So that one was totally on purpose as well, right? And there's actually one more thing wrong, and we'll see. Hopefully that works. Cool, so now we have this new text. And then now, oh my gosh, there's multiple things wrong with this. First off, everything is capitalized. Why is that happening? Right? And then everything's on one line, okay? So let's go through this and figure out. So first off, I initialize my count to be 1, right? But I never update the counter. When I get out a new word, I want to update my counter. So let's say update word count. Okay, so we can say count is equal to count plus 1. Awesome. That's one mistake. And another mistake is everything's on one line. And so we had talked about this before where we had used fgetL to get out all of our lines, right? And so that means we don't have the \n. And even if we had used fgetS, when we're stir toking through the lines, it's going to take off that last \n anyways. So therefore, we have in our print line something that does not have a \n. Okay? And so therefore, we need to print that \n. So let us try it one last time. And then now look at that. Beautiful. Okay, so now every other word is capitalized. And yeah. And so notice here, we will have an extra new line at the end. Okay, and that's because inside of our loop, we're always adding this \n on there. And in the scope of this class, for the most part, we'll just say that it doesn't matter if your file has an extra new line at the end. And so therefore, this is okay. And yeah, so we use the basic blueprint of moving through every word to kind of go through this file and capitalize every other word per line. And we saw that there were some issues along the way, and we were able to resolve those by thinking about what could cause our function to go wrong, and then zeroing in on those lines and then fixing them. And so that's it. All right, so in this example, I want to write a function that takes in two different files. So my first file will be something that I want to search through, right? In this case here, let's say it was all of these lyrics. And the second one will be a list of words, okay? In this case here, let's say I have bang, I, grotto, you. And so in this case here, what I want to output is a new file called word freaks, which is like word frequencies. That'll be the number, that'll be each word and the number of times that that shows up in this text file, okay? And so the thing about this is that I don't want to include instances where one of these words is a substring of the other one, okay? So first off, like I here, I shouldn't be looking for I that's inside of like I'll or I've or anything like that. I just want to look for the independent lone word I, okay? Also, case shouldn't matter, okay? And also what shouldn't matter is punctuation. So for instance, if I'm looking at the word bang, right, I should definitely count like these two, yeah, right? There's probably some more, like these other ones here, sure, right? These other ones right here. But then, let's say we go down to here, right? So I have bang and then like a comma. I should also count that, okay? And so this comma should not affect my count. All right, so now that we have an idea of what we want to do, let's go ahead and start writing some code for this. And so once again, I'm creating a new file, so therefore my function header isn't going to have an output. And so I don't even know what I want this function to be called. Let's say it's called just word freaks, okay? And so it's going to take in a file name, and it's going to take in a file name for a list, right? So let's call it list name. Cool. So then now let's think about the actual way that I'm going to do this, okay? There's many ways that you could do this. But one way is thinking about, okay, let's look at my first word in my word list. I want to get that first word, and then I want to search through the entire other file and count the number of times that shows up. Then I want to print that word and the count to a new file, okay? Then I want to move on to the next one. Then search through the entire file, count the number of times it shows up, print to the next one, okay? That's one way of doing it, and so that's the way that we're going to do it. I could do it in the opposite. I could go through this file and say, okay, look at this word and then try to search through all of these words here and increment and keep some sort of like multi-count system going on, but I'm not going to do it that way. I'm going to do it the way where I'm looking at each individual word here, searching through the file, counting the number of times, printing. Okay. So first, this one's a little bit complicated because we're moving through two different files. Okay. And we have to keep on moving through one file from top to bottom, then go back from top to bottom, so on and so forth, over and over and over and over again. And so we're going to have to keep in mind that we're going to have to be opening files and closing files and like all of this cool, fun stuff. But first off, let's simplify this where I just want to move through every single line in this word list. Okay, so I want to move through every line in word list. Okay, and so this will just be the basic syntax of moving through every single line in a file. And I'm guaranteeing that every single line will just contain one word. Okay, and so in this case here, I want to move through every single one. So therefore, we're going to open this one. So fh, let's call it fh list, will be fopen of list name. Awesome. Then I want to do the blueprint of moving through every line here. And so first I need to get out my line, and I have to ask myself, do I want to use fgetS or fgetL? Given that I know that every single line will contain just one word, I don't want that word to have a \n on it. So therefore I'm going to use fgetL to get rid of that \n. So fgetL of fhlist. Cool. In this case here, this is, actually let's not even call this line. Let's call this, it's called like check word, okay? Just to give it a little bit more meaning to what we're dealing with, okay? And so now I have this word and I want to move through every single, so while is char of check word, I want to move through every single line in that file, okay? And then in this case here, I want to get out the next one. So check word is equal to fgetL of fhlist, okay? And then at the end of this, then I want to close that file because I'm done looking at all of them. So fclose fhlist. All right. So this is the basic blueprint for moving through every single line in my word list. Cool. But now when I'm inside of here, I now have a word. In this case here, let's say I'm looking at Bing. Then I want to move through every single word in this text file. Okay. And every time I move on to another word in my word list, I want to start over again at the top of that text file. And so therefore, inside of this while loop, I'll have to be moving through every single word inside of that other text file. But I have to remember that there's no way of going back up, okay? The only way I can go back up is if I close the file and reopen it. So inside of here, I need to make sure that I'm first opening it inside the loop and then also closing it inside of the loop. So therefore, every time I move on to another word in my word list, I'm starting from the very beginning of my searching, of the text that I'm searching through, okay? So let's call this, fh search. Will be fopen of my file name, okay? And then now I want to search for word in text file. Awesome. And so in this case here, I need to move through every single word in this other text file, okay? And so that's going to be the same blueprint that we did before. So in this case here, this will be while, well, so first I have to get out of a line, right? And I don't want that to have a \n. So let's actually call this one line. So fgetL. I don't want this to have a \n because I don't want that last word to have a \n on it when I'm checking. So fgetL fh. This is fh search. And so while is char of my line, okay? So now I'm moving through every word in this other file. So then I need to get out word rest is equal to stir_toke of my line, okay? And then I need to move through every word. So while not is empty word, then I'll get out the next word. Oops. So word rest is equal to stir_toke of rest. Okay, all I'm doing here is setting up the blueprint. Okay, and so now I'm accessing every single word inside of here. Okay, but I had said that case should not matter. I had also said that punctuation should not matter. So therefore, when I get out a line, I want to make everything the same case, and I want to remove all punctuation. Okay, so I need to lowercase everything, and then I need to remove punctuation. And that's because, once again, I want to make sure that instances where I have something like hoping, comma, where is that? Like here, right? That this comma is not messing up my searching. All right. So in this case here, let's lower everything. So line is equal to the lower of my line. Awesome. And now I need to remove all punctuation, but I need to keep spaces, And so we can do this through like a mask. So we can say our mask is where our line is greater than or equal to little a. Everything is lowercase now. And where our line is less than or equal to little z. Right? So that's all of my letters. And I need to keep my spaces as well. Or where line is equal to a space. Awesome. So then I can say my line is equal to my line at mask. So I removed all the punctuation. Cool. So at this point in time, like when I get out my next, or when I get a line, it'll just be straight lowercase characters, no punctuation, and spaces. Beautiful. So now at this point in time, now I need to be searching through every single word, okay? And that's what I'm doing inside of here. Inside of this loop, I now have access to every single word inside of that text file. And what I want to do is I want to create a counter. Anytime that this word matches the word I'm checking for, I want to increment my counter, okay? So in this case here, I want to say if, and I can say the stir comp I, because I said I wanted to be case insensitive, of my word and check word, right? Then I want my count to be count plus 1. And then now the question here is, where do I initialize this counter, and what do I initialize the counter to be? So I want this to be a counter that's telling me how many times does that word show up in my text file. And so I want this counter to be reinitialized every time I get out another word from my word list, okay? And so that's happening with this while loop here. Okay, so every time I get out a new word, I want to reinitialize my count to be 0. If I put it outside of here, my count would only be initialized to 0 at the very, very beginning, and when I get out a new word, it's not going to be reinitialized, and that's not what I wanted. So I need to reinitialize my counter every single time I get out a new word from my word list. Awesome. So now at this point in time, I'm updating my counter. And so outside of this loop, the purpose of this loop is to count the number of times that the word shows up on a particular line, okay? This loop right here is essentially counting the number of times that that word shows up in the entire file, okay? I think I need to get out my other line. Let's see. So there's this one here. I lowercase my line. Yeah, I need another f get l. So at this point in time, I need to say my line is f get l of fh search. Okay, get our next line. So now this line, so this loop here, after I'm done, every single word will be checked inside of the file. Okay, and I'll have this overarching count. And before I get out the next word in my list, right, I want to print to that new file my word and then the count. So I need to open that file with writing permissions. I want to call the file word freaks. So I need to open this. I only want to open this once. Okay. So I need to say fh, let's call it w. Okay. So f open, let's call it word freaks.txt. And we need to open this with writing permissions. Awesome. So then I need to use that. And so now I need to, before I get out the next word, I want to go through here and print that. Yeah, so print fhw. And so let's do, I want it to be a %s and then a %d. And then we'll put a \n on that. And so the first thing that we're going to put here is check word. And then we're going to put the count. Okay. So I believe that there is one thing missing though. So notice here, I close my word list. Okay. But inside of this loop, right? So inside of this loop here, we are searching through the text file, okay? I'm opening it inside of this other loop, but I am never closing fsearch. So this means that before I get out the next word, if I don't close it, the next time I go through this, it's going to be an issue where I have lots of files open, or I'm not going to be starting over again on the first line. And so therefore I need to, before I also get out the next word for my word list, I need to close that other one. So this needs to be fh_search. Yes. So I'm closing this file inside of this loop, okay, in order to then start over again at the very beginning. Okay? And so there's a lot of stuff going on. And so let's test it. Probably isn't going to work the first time, but let's see. Let us see. There might be copious amounts of errors, but let's see. Word freak. So the file name, I want this to be song.txt. List name, I want this to be wordlist.txt. Let's see. Where are the errors? Oh, it did an error. Interesting. Okay. So if I open this, so I have all of my counts here. And so how do I know if this is right? I could go through and count every single one, right? Or in this case here, what I did was I added this word grotto because I know that this word grotto, if I do grotto, only shows up once, right? It only shows up once in this file. And over here, it says that it shows up once, okay? I wonder, is there an easy way to check everything else? Probably not, but in this case here, I feel like this is right. Let's assume it's right. Hopefully it's right. But there's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of stuff going on in this function, right? So for every time I'm getting out a word, right, I'm searching through the entire other file, right? Opening it, searching through it, closing it, okay? Counting all the things, then printing it to this next line. Printing it to this new file, okay? I move on to the next word. Do the exact same thing, okay? And so what I would say, what might make this code a little bit easier to read is, what if all of this, of searching through that other file for that word and creating an count, what if all of this were in a helper function? What if I created another function that had all of this code inside of it, that had that one specific task of, given a file, count the number of times this word shows up? Okay, I'm not going to do that, right? But that could make the code a little bit more readable because there's a lot of stuff going on. But what I wanted to show here is that how do you manage moving through two different files at two different rates, right? This outer loop, once again, is looking at this word list, okay? And so for every single word in that word list, I'm moving through every single line in the song file, and for every single line, I'm moving through every single word, okay? And I keep on opening and closing the song file, opening and closing it, opening and closing it, opening and closing it, until I've counted, or until I've looked at all of my words in my word list. And so I'm going to stop rambling, but pretty interesting problem here. And I get a cool result where now I have, and I could change this word list. I could add whatever words I wanted in this case here in order to figure out what are all the counts. And so that's it.